Hello, welcome back to part 2 of my entire physical media Blu-ray / 4K collection. We're going to pick up where we left off last time. However, there is a couple of films that I sort of missed accidentally last time. I think I had to take some out and just release some of the pressure on some of them. So we're also going to cover a couple of new pickups that I've gotten since I recorded that. It's not as hot today as it was last time, but it's still like over 20 degrees outside, and hopefully I plan on not running out of space on my phone, which made me like rush the sort of second half of that last video. So let's start with these pickups. It's a mixture of pickups and ones I missed out last time. There's only like 1, 2, 3, 4, there's only 5. So starting with recent pickup number 1, Bad Boys for Life. Again, I think I did mention this last time, or I've definitely mentioned it before. Ridiculous that this is the 3rd film and not the 4th film, when you could have called it Bad Boys for Life. That will always haunt my dreams. I think this is the weakest of the 4, but still great. I've praised these films to death by this point. But yeah, why didn't they just call it Bad Boys 3, and then we could have had Bad Boys for Life. Next up we have Blade Trinity. Speaking of terrible sequels, Bad Boys for Life's not a terrible sequel. This is, however, but you might be like, why the fuck did you buy it then? It's just an OCD thing. I had Blade 1 and 2, and I was like, why on earth don't I have the 3rd film? And there we go. I mean, that box art is so generic and shit in it. Also, Ryan Reynolds in this is essentially Deadpool. This feels like it was his Deadpool audition. Also stars Triple H. Why? Let's bring this forward a little bit. Let's put that back a little bit. There we go. This is one I missed last time, Brooklyn's Finest. This is a 2009-ish, I think it's from, a thriller directed by Antoine Fuqua, who I have always called him the king of the 3-star film. Although he did direct Training Day, which is not a 3-star film, but he makes these just like really safe like films that casual audiences tend to love. He actually recently directed the Michael Jackson biopic, which is not a 3-star film, that is a 1-star film. But yeah, this is a sort of overlooked film of his, I would say. It's a great cast, starring Richard Gere, Don Cheadle, Ethan Hawke, and Wesley Snipes. Speaking of Blade, in that I think he just got released from prison around this time was released. But it's sort of like 3 undercover cops that all sort of like intertwine with one another and sort of decent. Next up, a film I cannot believe that I own, Dirty Dancing. Was I coerced by my girlfriend into buying this? Maybe. It was better than I thought. It's a bit girly. I mean, look at the fucking box art. It's a bit girly, but it wasn't what I was expecting. It was like a backstreet illegal abortion scene in it, which I wasn't expecting. But like peak male is Patrick Swayze in that film. It's fun. It's a fun time. Just a nice film. We don't have enough nice films. And then we have Gran Torino, which is one of the films we accidentally skipped over last time as well. Probably one of the best films Clint Eastwood ever did, certainly in his later life. Anyway, there's some construction going on in the background, so I'm going to close my window and hopefully not cook myself. Okay, so this episode we're going to go from L to Z. I actually think this episode might be a bit longer than last time, so I'll try not to linger on anything too much. So starting with L, we have La Haine. La Haine. We've got La Haine, or Hatred, I believe is the English translation, on 4K by BFI. Comes in this sexy box, comes with a booklet that I will never read as well. One of the greatest films ever. Let alone non-English speaking films, released in 1995, and I saw this in cinema for its 30th anniversary last year. It's a difficult watch. If you don't know what this is, it's about 3 friends in Paris who one of their friends has been victim of police brutality and has been put in a coma, and the film and there's been riots in Paris in the wake of that. and the film follows these three friends of this boy who's been assaulted, and they just are sort of waiting on news of his condition, and just one of my favourite ever performances by Vincent Cassel in this. This is the sort of the film that really introduced him to the world, and it's a difficult watch. It deals with themes of police brutality, the way society has failed the youth, etc. But it's absolutely fantastic. I can't wait to watch the 4K of this. I've seen it like 3 times already in the last couple of years. I only saw it for the first time about 2 years ago. I've seen it a further 2 times since. But fantastic film if you ever get the chance to see it. Next up we have La La Land on 4K. I've surprisingly still only ever seen it once during lockdown on a tiny TV, so I certainly need to rewatch it. It's become like, I think it's the most popular film on Letterboxd, or has the most fans or something. Next up, one I'm quite interested to talk about is Like Mungo. What year is this from? I want to say 2006, 2007. This is an Australian horror film, although it's very divisive amongst horror fans, because one thing I've noticed is people either adore this or people fucking hate it. And it's not for everyone. It's very slow paced, and it's a sort of mockumentary about a young girl who drowned in Lake Mungo, and it sort of interviews with her family, and a lot of the scares in the film are just sort of slow zooms onto creepy photos, but I kind of like that shit. Like, I get really creeped out by, you know, someone just stood and looking at you, and when something's moving in the background and someone doesn't know it's there, that's the kind of shit I love in my horror, and Lake Mungo is full of it. I can see the argument, I really can. I can totally understand why people wouldn't fuck with it, because it's not a typical horror film, and I can sort of see the argument of it being boring. It's not for everyone, but if you appreciate slow burn, then I couldn't recommend it enough. I really, really love it, hence why I own the Blu-ray, and it's a fantastic transfer from Second Sight as well. It is, the case is a little bit manky because it did fall victim of the Lucasade incident earlier this year. But yeah, if you get the chance to watch Lake Mungo, I'd highly recommend it, but again, it's not particularly for everybody. Right, next up, this is quite a squeaky chair, isn't it? Next up, oh, and by the way, if anyone's asking, the DeLorean survived the incident. I'm actually going to move it. I've just noticed it's wheeled forward a little bit, so we don't want a repeat of that. Here's one I'm very interested to talk about. Look at the size of this bad boy. So this is a box set of the film director Lars von Trier. I don't know if it's every film he's done. I've actually not checked that. Actually, how many films does this contain? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 films, I think. The reason it's interesting to talk about, if you don't know who Lars von Trier is, he's a Danish filmmaker who's been making films since like the late 80s, but has only really come into fruition at the turn of the millennium, and I'd say much later in his career with his more recent films, has become like a really controversial filmmaker, not just because of the contents of his films, but some of the things that he's said as well. I think there's also been some touchy allegations about him in the past. I've not really looked into it too much, so that's all alleged if you're listening, Lars. The reason this box set is so controversial within itself. So if you look this up on Amazon, you'll probably notice there's quite a lot of 1-star reviews, and it isn't to do with the contents of the films. It's because this has been released twice. So I think this initially got released a couple of years ago, and it's the same box art. However, it just comes in this sort of sexy leather-bound case, and it comes with maybe a couple of posters and stuff, but everything else is the same. And when it first came out, I think it cost something like 150 quid. However, there was one glaring omission, and that was one of his most famous films, Dancer in the Dark, which I think is from 2000, 2001, stars Bjork, and it's an incredibly sad film about this blind woman who uses uses just sounds of machines in the factory that she works in to sort of help her through her day. She discovers that her son is going through the same eye condition as she is. She tries to save up money to help him get a surgery to help him. And then everything just starts going downhill, and it's just this look into what if we took the most purest, most innocent thing imaginable and just had the worst thing possible happen to her. And a lot of Lars von Trier films aren't very fun. They're very dark, and especially with a lot of his later films like Antichrist, which I still haven't seen, and the violence in that. I think even if you've not seen Antichrist, but you know about it, you probably know there's a scene involving some scissors and a woman's foof, which I won't go into. But then Nymphomaniac, which I have seen, both of them, volumes 1 and 2, and it's just an incredible look into both depression and sex addiction. And then The House That Jack Built, which is, when anybody asks me what is the most disturbing film I've ever seen, that is my answer. However, I've just slightly went off topic. So the original version of this they released, it came with the leather-bound case, but it didn't come with Dancer in the Dark. You had to buy that separately, and that is a very expensive Blu-ray to get. And then earlier this year, Curzon re-released the box set with the only difference being it doesn't come in that leather case, but it does include Dancer in the Dark and everything else that he's ever done. Does it have Dogville? It does. Wow, okay. Maybe this is all his films. So the reason it was controversial is because originally it was released for £150, came with this leather-bound case, but didn't contain Dancer in the Dark. They then re-released it, contained the one major film it was missing, and it was only £80. So anybody who bought the original release was left like pissed off. But yeah, I might rewatch these. I'll put a clip of a better look into this box set over the top of this so you can get a better look of it. But yeah, they're not for everybody. Some of these films are quite pretentious, but the themes they deal with, especially depression, is some of the most realistic and devastating portrayals of that I've ever seen. Next, we've got The Last Duel, and possibly the last good film Ridley Scott will ever make. It absolutely bombed so hard at the box office to the point where I think even Ridley Scott came out and slagged off Marvel films in the wake of how poorly it did at the box office. I do believe this is a Get Your Flicks Out top 10, I think, of 2021 or 2022, whenever this came out. But yeah, Ridley Scott is very good at directing these films of huge epic scale, and even some of his worst films like Napoleon, for example, you can't doubt the scale of the project and the fact that he's in his mid-80s now, I think. And he's not the best when it comes to writing dialogue, but this is a fucking brilliant film. It tells the story of the last ever duel to the death within France. There's some pretty difficult scenes to watch in it, but great. I mean, look at the cast: Matt Damon, Adam Driver, Jodie Comer, Ben Affleck. I mean, just ignore the terrible wig that Ben Affleck is sporting there, but probably Ridley Scott's one of his best, and probably, like I just said, one of the last good ones he'll ever do. One I recently got, Lawrence of Arabia in 4K, often cited as one being the greatest films of all time. Comes on 1, 2, 3, it comes on 4 discs. This film is like 4.5 hours long. I've never seen it, but like I think I mentioned this in the last episode, if there's a really famous film of this length, I want to experience it in the best way possible, which is why I bought the 4K. But we're saving that for a rainy Sunday afternoon, I think. We've got Layer Cake, which a lot of people attribute to being the film that got Daniel Craig the role of James Bond. Directed by Matthew Vaughn, back when he was still good. We've got Le Mans 66, or Ford versus Ferrari, as it was called elsewhere. Why did studios change names of films? I'm not too sure. Maybe it was a licensing thing, because it's 2 brands. I'm not too sure. But Very annoying. This is actually in the IMDb top 250, I noticed the other day. But yeah, super good. Probably one of Christian Bale's better performances. He's on a bit of a terrible run at the minute. Speaking of terrible, The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. From the director of Blade. I didn't even know that. Sight has been one of the worst films ever made. In fact, I actually did an episode of like top 10 terrible films I love, and I think this was either number 1 or number 2. A film so bad that the director, the guy directed Blade, which I didn't even know until just reading that, he never made anything ever again after this, and Sean Connery never acted in anything ever again after this. But I watch it, and I haven't watched it in some time, but when I watch it, I'm just like, I don't get the hate for it. Like, it's of its time, for sure. But I love the concept of like the Avengers, but what if it was like 19th century literary characters like the Invisible Man and Dorian Gray and the Bride of Dracula and Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. That is such a sick concept, and I know it isn't an original concept for the film. It's based on the comic book series by Alan Moore, and I think because this film was so shit, Alan Moore refused to have his name attached to any of his adaptations, like Watchmen and V for Vendetta and stuff like that. But yeah, I think this did really well DVD-wise. I don't think it did that well at the box office, but the DVD sales for it did really well, and I think there has been talk of maybe reviving it. Maybe I need to rewatch it and I'll realise just how shit it is. But I love this sort of silly blockbuster era, so things like Van Helsing and Underworld, these sort of like steampunk high budget action films. I don't know, Justice for League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. Get in. Next we have a couple of Lego. We have the Lego Movie, probably one of the biggest surprises of all time. I've still only ever seen it the once, but when it came out in cinema. And then we have the Lego Batman film, which is just fucking incredible, isn't it? We've got another Ridley Scott film, one I've still not seen, and that's Legend on Steelbook, just a standard Blu-ray. It's not a 4K. With Tom Cruise with terrible teeth, sort of a silly fantasy film that a lot of people don't really talk about, but you'll definitely know the Tim Curry villain in it, where he's the devil with the giant horns. Next we have Leon, or Leon the Professional, I think as it's known in other territories. It's a bit noncy, especially, you know, especially the director, who again has had some dodgy allegations against him in the past, and sort of based the relationship of the two characters of him and his wife, who he met when she was like 13, I think. Another film people accused of being quite noncy, Licorice Pizza by Paul Thomas Anderson, just which I disagree with. You know, I think the relationship between the two main characters is a cause for contention for some people. I don't think it has those kind of undertones at all. It's such a nice film. It's a little bit long for what it is, but I rewatched it recently, having rewatched his entire filmography, and it's just a nice film. It's just so charming. What isn't charming is The Lighthouse by Robert Eggers. I need to rewatch that. Still only seen it the once when it was in cinema. We've got The Lion King on 4K. I'm not too sure why I got the 4K. I don't think it's necessary for that sort of animation style. But yeah, just one of the most important films ever to me. I mean, I think I spoke in the intro of the last episode. That was one of the few VHSs I had growing up and just absolutely loved it. We've got Lisa Frankenstein on 4K. Catherine Newton has been announced for the Love of Horror convention in Manchester later this year. Oh, I can't wait to get arrested. We've got Little Miss Sunshine, just one of the best feel-good films ever made. We have the Blu-ray that started it all, Logan on Blu-ray Steelbook. Again, I think I mentioned this in the intro of the last episode. This is the artwork that made the artwork was just so epic that I just had to buy that, and that's what kickstarted my collection of physical media again. So this was the very first in this entire collection. This was the very first one I got. Getting some lore now, aren't we? Got another sexy, this beautiful, slightly terrifying steelbook of Longlegs, a film that again is quite polarizing, but I low-key loved it. Next we have Looper. Oh, my baby. My baby. The Lord of the Rings box set on 4K. Very expensive, by the way. I think like CX, this costs like 80 quid or something. The greatest films ever made, and I won't have a bad thing said about them. Although I've heard the transfer for them isn't that great. I mean, I don't really look into that all that much, but someone was telling me that they're not actually that good of a transfer. They've got The Lost Boys, one of my favourite ever films, Lost in Translation. The first film I ever watched on Netflix, I think, back in, God, what year would it have been? 2011 maybe, but it's such a bittersweet film. It's so beautiful. I think I may have told, yes, I did tell this story before where I really wanted a quote from that film tattooed on me, but then my girlfriend at the time ended up getting it tattooed on her instead, which I'll never forgive her for. We've got Love Actually on Blu-ray. Is it the best Christmas? No, it's not the best Christmas film. Although, I know there's been a lot of arguments as to it's not aged well, and that, you know, because of Keira Knightley's age in it. There's quite a few Nancy films in this part, isn't there? But yeah, I love it. It just reminds me of a better time, Love Actually. We've got Love Lies Bleeding from A24. We have... Malignant, James Wan's Malignant, incredibly underrated, a former top 10 best of the year film, sort of came and went, which is kind of weird considering how big James Wan is within the horror sphere and how he's responsible for one of the biggest franchises ever, that being Saw, and the Conjuring as well. But then sort of went back to his roots with this one, you know, on a much smaller scale. Because he's directed like Hollywood blockbusters as well. He directed a couple of the Fast and the Furious films as well as the 2 Aquaman films as well. But this, a real homage to sort of like 70s giallo horror, but it's absurd and it's fucking brilliant. Couldn't recommend it enough. What's this? Oh, we've got Martyrs, which me and Alice spoke about on her episode. She said it was the film that scared her the most. It's a difficult watch. It's fucked up, but unlike some of the, you know, films like a Serbian film and stuff like that, and The Human Centipede, where it's just edgy for edgy's sake and they leave a bad taste in your mouth. Like, yes, this is a very disturbing film, but the sort of violence and the message is sort of warranted, and it is fucking brilliant. Speaking of good Ridley Scott films, we have The Martian. I think some people might even consider that to be his last good film. I'm not going to get all of these next ones out, but again, I'll probably just put a video overlying the top of this. But we've got all the Marvel films, all the Marvel films that count at least. So it's the basically the Infinity Saga. So it's Phase 1, Phase 2. And then Phase 3 is in 2 separate boxes, but they come in beautiful boxes that they come in, and they have all these postcards, and when you put them together, they make a picture and stuff like that, and they're just very aesthetically pleasing on the eye, all of those. So it goes from Iron Man all the way up to Spider-Man Far From Home. So yeah, just all the films that count, basically. Well, I've been craving watching this film recently. I don't know why. Again, it's a film that was one of those few VHSs I had when I was younger, but that's The Mask on 4K by Arrow Video, the collector's edition. God, it comes with all sorts of stuff. Again, a booklet, which is actually a news article from the film. But yeah, I've got a real love for this film. And I don't know why, for some reason, I've been absolutely craving watching it recently, and especially Arrow. Those boys, again, I've sung their praises before, but their 4K transfers are just absolute. They are the tits, and we'll be talking about them again in a moment, but not before. We get the Matrix films. It's the 4 films, and also comes with the Animatrix, which is still to this day in 2026 probably the second best thing from this franchise. Sort of craving a rewatch of this. I know me and Chloe started watching the first film not too shortly after I moved in, but she fell asleep about an hour in. So again, I sort of want to do a rewatch of these. Again, I've heard the 4K transfer for the first one isn't good, but the Matrix sequels have sort of been reanalyzed later down the line, especially the second one. And when I last did my rewatch of them, I did have a lot of love for the second one. But it'd be interesting to rewatch the fourth one because I hated it, and I just remember nothing from it, just being terrible. But again, it's going to be very interesting how that will be perceived in years to come, I think. Next we have probably my favourite Christopher Nolan film. You know, currently making my way through his films, and every time I rewatch it, I really want Nolan to do a thriller again. One I rewatched recently. Don't at me the fact that I own it. We've got Mean Girls on Blu-ray. Something I'm so excited to talk about now is the Mexico trilogy, Robert Rodriguez's Mexico trilogy, El Mariachi, Desperado, Once Upon a Time in Mexico. The films that made Robert Rodriguez. So El Mariachi, the story behind that film's creation is just so inspiring that Robert Rodriguez made that film for $7,000 of his own money, and he was the only crew member. He filmed it himself. He was the sole cameraman. He edited it himself. He scored it himself. And the fact that you can make an action film with shootout sequences for $7,000 and get it distributed in cinemas is fucking insane, and we're never gonna see that ever again. I mean, you sort of seen it a little bit in the YouTuber space with the amount of YouTubers who are making films at the moment, and I think Obsession is probably a huge example of that. But Obsession was still a cheap film. I think it cost under $1 million, and it's looking at making over 250 mil at the box office, which is going to make it one of the most profitable films ever. But El Mariachi, and what's so ahead of its time with that is that Robert Rodriguez made his own like director tutorials, and you can actually, I think they're actually on the special features for El Mariachi here. Robert Rodriguez's film school. So it feels like he was making YouTube tutorials back in 1991 or whenever that film came out. So, so El Mariachi's somewhat grounded, albeit the sort of like silly stylistic shootouts, and then each subsequent film, the sort of tone just is turned up to 11. And they just get a bit silly and ridiculous. So Desperado being the second film, and then Once Upon a Time in Mexico is one of the most insane films I've ever seen, starring Johnny Depp and Enrique Iglesias with a flamethrower guitar. But I often think Robert Rodriguez might have one of the most absurd filmographies ever. Like he'd made those, and then he made all the Spy Kids films, and I mean all of them, including like the direct-to-video ones, which is insane. We've got Mid-90s, directed by Jonah Hill. We've got Midsommar. You guys know I love Midsommar because I've got a Midsommar tattoo right there. During rewatch, I think. We've got $1 Million Baby. God damn, that's a sad one, isn't it? We've got Misery, directed by the recently passed, under incredibly tragic circumstances, Rob Reiner. Rewatched that in cinema when they were doing a Stephen King season towards the end of last year, and Kathy Bates might just be one of the greatest ever performances ever in that. Next, we have My Babies. We've got the Mission Impossible collection on 4K, all 8 films in 2 different boxes. So this covers 1 to 6, and then this is The Final Reckoning and Dead Reckoning. What's really annoying is that surely the first film should go on top there instead of the bottom. That's when you have OCD like me, that boils my piss greatly. But yeah, all on 4K. Said it before, I'll say it again, the most consistent film franchise ever made. We've got The Mist. Oh. Famous for having one of the most fucked up endings of all time. and it's so good, and the story behind it's so interesting. Like directed by Frank Darabont, who did The Shawshank Redemption and The Green Mile, and is renowned for adapting Stephen King stories. But apparently, he turned down like a significantly bigger budget. I think it was made for like 7 million, and they offered him to. I think they offered him like triple the budget, but he wanted to make it on such a smaller scale and not really have any super famous actors in it. Of course, it stars Thomas Jane. There's quite a few actors from The Walking Dead in this as well, which Frank Darabont had a huge hand in, especially the first season of The Walking Dead. But The Mist is fantastic, tells the story of a bunch of people trapped in a supermarket when this mysterious fog completely engulfs the town, and inside said fog might be some horrible creatures. But yeah, fantastic film. Again, probably most known for its ending. We have Moana. A couple of weeks before the live action film comes out, the Soulless Empty live action film. One of the... I tell you what I do need to rewatch is this. Monsters, Inc. Oh, a nice film. Now, this is my Mortal Kombat section. I did have the original Mortal Kombat 1995 and the Mortal Kombat Annihilation on a Blu-ray and a double pack on a steelbook, and it's quite an expensive steelbook. It goes for about 40 quid pre-owned, and I got it from CEX. However, do you know when CEX have those stickers on their cases, the sort of residue stained the steelbook and therefore damaged it, so I ended up trading it back in. And it's a good job because Arrow have just announced, and literally my payment came out today, that we're getting a 4K double pack of both the original Mortal Kombat 95 and Annihilation, both on 4K, which comes out next week, and my payment came out today, which is good news. So they are missing currently, but we'll be getting them soon. So we've got the 2021 Mortal Kombat film, which I rewatched in cinema recently, just before the new one. I'm a huge fan of Mortal Kombat. One of my favourite ever gaming franchises, certainly my favourite fighting franchise. I remember really liking this when it first came out, but rewatching it a couple of weeks ago before the second one, I'm like, oh, it gets some things right. What it gets right, it gets really right, but what it gets wrong, it gets really wrong. Like the really stupid idea that they get their powers by believing in themselves, and the fact that they all have the dragon as a birthmark, and that means they're chosen, and the fact that they had the main character was an original character made for the film and was just received really terribly by fans. But what's so refreshing is that they heard all those criticisms and just retconned it in the second one. I had a lot of fun with the sequel. And I think this was one of the few films I reviewed back on my original YouTube channel. And I said, wouldn't it be fun if in the sequel they just kill Cole Young immediately? And they did. So that's fun. And then we have a few of these animated films that they made. So there's 4 of these. I thought there was only 3. So there's Scorpion's Revenge. Which is it's essentially just the plot of, it's just a very baseline plot of Mortal Kombat. Then we've got Battle of the Realms, which isn't that great. Snowblind, which is a sort of Kenshi origin story, and then we have like a Johnny Cage one as well. But I don't remember much about them. I really remember enjoying Scorpion's Revenge though. Next we have, is this Mother? Yeah, Darren Aronofsky's Mother. Then we have My Babies. We've got The Mummy, and The Mummy and The Mummy Returns. I love this film. I know that's not a super controversial thing to say, but I 5-starred it on Letterboxd recently. I'm just not ashamed to give it 5 stars anymore, because when I watch it, it fills me with so much joy, and it's a flawless action film, and it's probably the best Indiana Jones film that doesn't have Indiana Jones. And I feel like we should have got more great mummy films. Instead we got a heavily flawed but still fun sequel, and then the dreadful third one. But of course we are getting a 4th film, which comes out next year. It was originally scheduled for 2028 but was pushed forward. It's coming out of, I think it's either October or November of next year. Next we have Mystic River, Stephen King. Is it Stephen King? No, it isn't. I always think it's a Stephen King film. It's Clint Eastwood. How have I got those two mixed up? It's a thriller. It's so good. Sean Penn won one of his 3 Oscars for this. So good, but just really falls apart in the last 15 minutes or so. If the 15 minutes of this were better, I would honestly consider this one of the greatest thrillers ever made. But yeah, just sadly, it really just falls apart with the reveal at the end, in my opinion. We have The Neon Demon, which I still think is Nicholas Winding Refn, of course, directed Drive. He's the last film he ever did, but he's coming out with a new one that comes out later this year. It's weird as shit, but beautiful cinematography. I need to rewatch that, actually. Might watch his films coming up. One of the most underrated films ever made, The Nice Guys. People are demanding a sequel to this, and rightly so. Just a really brilliant buddy cop, buddy comedy, black comedy with Russell Crowe and Ryan Gosling, directed by Shane Black, who like really shines in this genre of films. I think in the last episode we spoke about Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, which feels like a real spiritual predecessor to The Nice Guys. We have one of the earliest ever Get Your Flicks Out film recommendations, and another really heavy film, and that's The Nightingale, directed by Jennifer Kent, who I still don't think has made anything since this. And what year is this? I think this is from, 2020? 2018 even. So she directed The Babadook, which is, of course, is like really catapulted her into superstardom, and then made this, which is a revenge film set in Tasmania during the British colonisation in the 1800s, and it is heavy. There's so many like scenes of SA and children being brutally killed, but Sam Claflin in this is one of the greatest villains in recent history. I might rewatch it. Is it? I'm sure I've seen it on Netflix at some point, but it's heavy. But it's a fucking brilliant movie. Then we have one of the most important films ever made, Night of the Living Dead. Then we have the Nightmare on Elm Street box set. I feel, considering how famous Freddy is, it kind of shocks me that we still haven't... I know we had the remake in 2010, the dreadful remake, but I feel, considering how famous he is, I'm kind of shocked that, especially with... We've had the recent Halloween films and Texas Chainsaw, and they're making a new Texas Chainsaw. I feel like and they're doing a Friday the 13th TV series. I feel like, where's our new Freddy stuff? And I can't ever envision anyone else playing Freddy other than Robert Englund, but it contains all the Freddy films. The best one being, well, you'd argue that the original is the best, but the third one is my favourite. And I think that's a fairly common opinion amongst fans of those films. But the third film is just really fun and stars some like big names like Patricia Arquette, Lawrence Fishburne as well in the third film. This chair is doing my head in. But that has recently been released on 4K. It's the only way you can watch all those films in 4K. And they did a 4K steelbook release, and the box is in like, it's like Freddy's jumper, and it looks sick, but it is £200 and it's sold out like that. But apparently it is getting a reprint later this year. We've got Nosferatu on steelbook. I love this film, and I think it finished third in my best films of 2024. But I've seen a lot of people I don't think people love it as much as I do. I know me and my friends who saw it absolutely loved it, but yeah, I love that, and I can't wait to see what Robert Eggers does next. We've got Oculus, that's a fucking creepy... is it Mike Flanagan who does this? I'm pretty sure it is. Yes, it is Mike Flanagan who directs Oculus, starring Karen Gillan. Pretty underrated one. We've got, again, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, again, just keeping up with the 4Ks of all my Tarantino films. Recently rewatched this. Me and my friend watched all of Tarantino's filmography last year, and people consider this to be his best work, and I think a lot of people are saying this is why Tarantino isn't making his 10th film, is because he believes he's already made his magnum opus, and people see this. It really shocks me that this film is only 6 years old. No, it's not, it's 7 years old. And it's already got this legacy of it being one of the greatest films of the 21st century, and I just don't see it. I get why people like it. I get the vibes. I get the tone. I get the metaphors. I understand that it's Tarantino's. Like I said, I didn't want to talk too much in depth about the Tarantino films because I wanted to do a ranking of his. But I get how Tarantino loves this era of film, like the swinging 60s, and how he feels like the swinging 60s were literally murdered by the Manson family when Sharon Tate was murdered. And this is his version of, well, what if that didn't happen, and if the old golden age of Hollywood was able to live on, hence the name of the film, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, because it's a fairy tale. Like, I get it. I get the metaphor, like, but the silly ending, it just feels like Inglourious Basterds 2.0 to me, the ending. And it's boring. I'm sorry. I get people like it. I get that people like these like hangout films, and it's Brad Pitt going for a drive for 10 minutes, and Brad Pitt is the sexiest anyone's ever looked in cinema in this. But I've seen it 3 times now. I saw it twice in cinema. I actually hated it the first time I ever watched it, but maybe it'll grow on me one day. I hope it does. And of course, he's getting a sequel this year, which is mad. We have One Battle After Another, the Getty Flicks out. Best film of 2025, and of course, if you've got an eagle eye, you'll notice this is I don't want to expose my hairline, a One Battle After the Other cap by Rucking Fountain. Check them out. They're a sort of clothing brand that release clothes based on films, but they're only limited time drops. They're only available for like 72 hours, sorry. But yeah, I got this hat from them, as well as a One Battle After Another shirt. This caused a bit of contention in the physical media space because the 4K doesn't contain any special features, and I'm not necessarily someone who watches a lot of special features just for the amount of time that they can consume. But only on the Steelbook did they release special features. Next we have One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, one of the GOATs. We have another Nicholas Winding Refn film, and released a couple of years after Drive, and almost feels like a spiritual successor to Drive, that being Only God Forgives, again starring Ryan Gosling. There's lots of neon. Ryan Gosling plays a very stoic character who only says like 5 lines in it. It's very weird from what I remember. What Steelbook is this? This is Sloppenheimer. That is a beautiful Steelbook, isn't it? Look at that. I love that film. I didn't think I would. I love it more and more with each watch. But speaking of films I love, and a film I don't really think I've ever spoken about on here. I adore this. I've still only seen it twice. I saw it about 18 months ago under very bizarre circumstances that I won't go into. But Palm Springs. Now, this is a German copy. Everything's in German on the back. And you can probably tell by the huge age rating sticker there. I had to own this because it was a direct-to-streaming film produced by Hulu, I think. But when I watched this, it was released in 2020 during the National Cough, and I watched it directly on streaming. And that was a period of my life that I just felt, and it had nothing to do with lockdown. Lockdown attributed it to it, but it was a time in my life that I just felt so lonely and felt like it was such a real low point in my life. And this film, I don't want to say it saved me or anything like that, because that sounds kind of lame and stuff and cliche, but it's so beautiful. And it's probably not even supposed to be, but that's what I took from it. So, stars Andy Samberg and Kristen Milotti. And it's a time loop film, which isn't original, of a wedding in Palm Springs. And Andy Samberg is trapped in this time loop where he has to relive this wedding every day and accidentally drags Kristen Milotti into it. And it's just so feel good. It's so feel good. And if you like those sort of quirky rom-coms like a 500 Days of Summer or something like that, then I couldn't recommend it enough. It's beautiful, and I really hope we can get a UK or a US produced physical copy, because I think I've actually not tested this, but I believe that it will start in German, but you do have the option to have it in English. But yeah, Palm Springs, I just get a bit emotional then, fucking hell. One of my favourites as well, Pan's Labyrinth. You may notice my Pan's Labyrinth tattoo piece here. As well as that, we have a couple of Funko Pops, one of which is signed by Doug Jones, who played the Pale Man in that film. I queued up for 2 hours to meet that cunt for the Love of Horror earlier last year. And he was just, the reason it took so long is A, because he just had so many people, and B, he was just so nice with everybody. He's probably the nicest celebrity I've ever met. Really took his time with people. He loved my tattoo. We've got a picture of it together, which I will put on screen now. But yeah, great guy. Next we have Paranormal Activity. I cannot believe that when I did my favourite horror film episode, I put this at I put this in the top 10. What a fucking idiot. Like I didn't put the Hereditary in it, but I put this in it. What the fuck am I doing with my life, man? We have Stanley Kubrick's Paths of Glory. Recently watched this as part of his filmography. Incredible, like, and has never been more prevalent than it is today. It's set during World War One, I think, and it's about some French soldiers who are ordered to like attack a German stronghold, but they believe that they shouldn't do it and they're going to get massacred. Spoiler alert, they do get massacred and they retreat from the objective, and then they're tried with cowardice, and it's just an incredible anti-war film. Just ignore the fact that none of them are French when they're supposed to be. Next up we have Pearl, of course the second in T.I. West's X trilogy, which was absolutely ruined by that atrocious third film. We have Satoshi Kon's Perfect Blue, one of the most disturbing yet beautiful films ever made. Incredible. I'm not big on my anime, as you know, but that is probably one of the greatest animes ever made. And Satoshi Kon, if you don't know, is a director who is often cited as being ahead of his time, and that a lot of filmmakers have certainly borrowed from his work. So this is such an obvious, like this, so, I don't know if Darren Aronofsky's ever outspoken it, but it's Black Swan, basically. And there's a shot from this film of the main character in the bath with her head underwater where she's screaming, and that exact same shot is in Requiem for a Dream, again by Darren Aronofsky. So, like, it certainly inspired Black Swan, but it's about this sort of like J-pop singer who wants to transition to becoming an actress and starts filming really heavy stuff, and then she starts going crazy, and there's also a serial killer going about. It's very short. It's only like, it's 82 minutes, so it's like 1 hour 20, but it's messed up, but it's incredible. I've got another film of his that I haven't seen, which we'll get to in a bit. We've got Phone Booth. We've got, again, one of the films that was just meant so much to me as a kid, Pinocchio. And then following on that, we've got Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio on 4K from Criterion, and comes in this lovely little box. All the Criterion stuff comes with these little booklets that I'll never read. Incredibly underrated, by the way. It did go direct to Netflix, I think, so it's nice to see that Criterion gave it a physical release. Incredibly underrated stop motion animation, and it's like a direct adaptation of Pinocchio with a brilliant voice cast as well. Actually, yeah, it's Ewan McGregor who's Jiminy Cricket, but it's set during like Mussolini's fascist regime and stuff. It's like just a perfect adaptation of the original Pinocchio story. We've got Pirates of the Caribbean, Lightning in a Bottle. Man, this is so good. If you've not watched it in a long time, rewatch it and remind yourself how fucking incredible it is. Just a great summer blockbuster, and we never hit the heights of it again, did we? We've got A Place Beyond the Pines. We've got the Planet of the Apes trilogy, which again, I just think is super underrated. I think when people talk about the great trilogies, it's never really brought up when it should be. And Matt Reeves directed those last two and it got him the Batman. So that just shows you how good they are. We've got Pleasure, which is a film, is a former top 10 Get Your Flicks Out. I think I put it at number 7 in the year it came out, maybe 2021 or 22. Real dark look into the porn industry. We've got Point Break. Hell yeah. We've got Get Your Flicks Out runner-up in Poor Things. This is like the thinnest case. Oh, I hate it. I think that was the first one that I got where I was like, what the hell? It just feels so cheap and shite. But yeah, love Poor Things. Love, love, love. We've got Possession on 4K. Oh, just need to cover up some areolas there. We've got Possession on 4K, which is often cited as being one of the most famous horror films ever made. I've not seen it. I bought the 4K because, again, I just wanted to experience it in the best way possible. We've got the recently released and quite annoyingly and poorly timed release of the Predator films on 4K, and contains Predator, Predator 2, Predators, The Predator, and Prey. They could have waited another 6 months and they could have released Predator Badlands with it, but they didn't, which is annoying. I love the original Predator and I love Prey as well. Got The Prestige on 4K. We've got, what are these two bad boys? We've got Prisoners. Again, I'd like to maybe see Denis Villeneuve direct something on a smaller scale again, do a thriller, but we're not going to get that anytime soon with his upcoming Dune film. And he's obviously doing the next Bond film as well, which is wonderful. We've got Promising Young Woman. It's Emerald Fennell who directs that, right? Yeah. Yeah, I've hated everything she's done since, including her Saltburn and that atrocious Wuthering Heights film she did. We've got Pulp Fiction on 4K. Again, I don't want to talk about it too much for the Tarantino films, but this is probably the most important film ever to me. You'll probably see the VHS there and the Bad Motherfucker wallet there as well. I don't want to dwell on it too much, but yeah, this is just, it means everything to me. And I know it's a typical film boy, film bro answer, but what this means to me, and again, I'll probably talk about it more once we get to a Tarantino list one day, but yeah. Ooh, two I'm very excited to talk about now. We've got, if you were to ask yourself what's the first ever Marvel film ever made, you'll probably say Iron Man. In fact, if you Google what was the first ever Marvel film, it will tell you it's Iron Man, when it isn't, because the Spider-Man films came before then. It's the first MCU film, but if you say, no, what's the first Marvel film that had the Marvel banner, you go, well, it's Blade. It isn't Blade. Is it Howard the Duck? I don't know if Howard the Duck was a Marvel character, but in terms of an established Marvel character, it's 1989's The Punisher with Dolph Lundgren. It's brilliant. Like it's a very cliche 80s film, and what's kind of crushing is that it doesn't at any point have the iconic Punisher logo, because they didn't have the rights to use it, or they didn't think they had the rights, but it was then later revealed that they did. So I know there are certain artworks of this that do contain the skull. In fact, he has it there, like just about. But I don't think he has it in the film at any point. But it's the best Marvel film you've never seen, and of course, the 2004 Punisher film on Steelbook with Thomas Jane. I've spoken about this before. I think I did it on a top 10 films everyone hates that I love, but the consensus is people fucking love this film, especially fans. It still has a super low Rotten Tomatoes rating. It has issues, mostly its setting, because they wanted to get John Travolta as the villain, but he refused to leave Florida where he lives, so the film is set in Florida, but the Punisher should be set in New York, shouldn't it? Not sunny Florida. He has reprised his role since, both in the excellent PS2 game, where he does the voiceover, as well as a short film which came out in like 2010 or something called Dirty Laundry. But yeah, people like this. Fans of the Punisher like this, and I think people would even say it's probably the best Punisher film. Although I have heard people also say What the fuck is it? I bought this recently, very recently. Punisher Warzone. I just don't. Ray Stevenson, God bless him, recently passed. Certainly has the physicality of Frank Castle, and in terms of violence, it's probably the best we've seen from that character. But I love the Punisher. I don't know if people know this, but he's my favourite Marvel character. I still don't think we've had a great Punisher film though. Like, I know I like the 2004 one very much, and it's personally my favourite. I think John Bernthal is the best Punisher. I would like him to get his own film. We've got Puss in Boots, the first one, which I've not seen, and then The Last Wish, which is one of the greatest animated films in recent memory. If you haven't seen it, what the fuck are you doing, me life? I'm having a bit of a nightmare getting some of those in. We've got A Quiet Place, parts 1, 2. Third film incoming. We've got The Raid. I've not seen the second one. Often cited as being one of the greatest action films in recent memory. Not seen the second one. But it's like 3 hours long, the second one. Because every time I'm like, right, I'm going to watch The Raid 2. And then I put it on and I'm like, oh no, it's 2 hours 45. So I'm still yet to see it. We've got Raising Arizona, one of the early Coen Brothers films. It's so fun. So I saw this in cinema at Cultplex a couple of years ago. And there's a Nicolas Cage band called Cage Against the Machine, who all dress as Nicolas Cage characters and do Rage Against the Machine covers. But before they came on, they did a showing of this, and it's so much fun. And then we've got Akira Kurosawa's Ran, which is King Lear, but what if it was in the samurai period? Colour has never looked this good, by the way. Incredible film. Then we've got fucking Raw. Great cannibal film directed by Julia something or other, who directed Titan, which I hated. I think it's pretentious nonsense, but fantastic body horror film. Raw, about veganism and stuff like that. Pretty heavy stuff. And then we've got Ready or Not, which I forgot I even owned. I'm gonna have to move a little bit so we can get on the opposite side, and then we're on to our last few. Not sure if you can hear some kind of work being done outside. Ignore this sort of... I'm right by my window. I've had to close my blinds as well. But I think we should be okay. Again, if it's doing your head in, just listen to the audio version. Right, next we have Rec, which is a really great Spanish-speaking found footage film. One of the few good found footage films, may I add. We have Requiem for a Dream on Steelbook. That's a challenging wank. Oh, let me get this out. So this is probably, is it my favourite Steelbook that I have? It's certainly up there. This Reservoir Dogs Steelbook, where the ear comes off, which I just think is really creative. I really wanted to get this signed a couple of years ago at a convention by Michael Madsen, but it was one of those weird conventions in the middle of nowhere. I think it was in like where was it? Telford. It was Telford Comic Con, of all places. And I thought, oh, I'll get the chance to see him again. And then he sadly passed away last year, didn't he? And what a great actor, by the way. Like, I know he did a lot of shit. Like, he did a lot of like B movies and direct to video garbage, but just what when you see him in a lot of the Tarantino stuff, like, he's just so good. And I would even go as far as saying he's like super underrated, to be honest. Why do I own this? Got Resident Evil on Blu-ray, the 2002 one with Mila Jovovich, and the only one of these films you need to see. This might be the worst set of films I've ever seen. I watched them a couple of years ago, and they are so bad. There's some fun in some of them. I think the third one, which actually has Chris Redfield and Claire Redfield in it, is okay. And Claire Redfield is played by the bitch from Final Destination. Ari Lata, is that her name? But has literally nothing to do with the game. Like, nothing. I know I've just said Chris and Claire are in those films, but like, And Wesker is in them as well, I think, isn't he? And Nemesis. But like, with the exception of a few characters and Umbrella being the villains, like just absolutely nothing to do with the games. And of course, we have that upcoming Zach Cregger film, which I think, what a great trailer that had, by the way. We've got Revenge, which is directed by Carolee Faget, who did The Substance, her first film, and like is just a real good. I think this would make a great double feature with The Substance. Again, lots of body horror in this, very, very violent, but a fantastic performance by this actress here, Matilda Lutz, who like doesn't speak at all for the second half of that film. But yeah, that's a great film. We have Road to Perdition, directed by Sam Mendes, starring Tom Hanks in one of the sort of fewer, I don't want to say serious, like when I say serious roles, of course Tom Hanks has done serious roles. He's Saving Private Ryan, but he's still very much like the protagonist of that film. And he's in this, but he's a gangster in this who kills people. It's good. It's good. It's a good film. We've got RoboCop. And then, I don't want to forget it because it's on the shelf over here, but we of course have Tommy Wiseau's The Room. A Blu-ray that's quite hard, is quite expensive. Thankfully, I saw this at Cultplex at a screening earlier this year, which was hosted by Greg Sestero, who plays Mark in the film. Oh, hi, Mark. Who, of course, went on to write his best-selling book, The Disaster Artist, which channeled his, which told the story of the making of this film, and then that within itself was made into a film starring James Franco. And Dave Franco, who played Greg Sestero. And I bought this there, and it was also signed by Greg as well, which says, oh, hi, James. And is then signed by him as well, and contains this very bizarre photo of Tommy in the middle of it. Yeah, if you haven't seen The Room, by the way, get pissed with your friends and watch it. I watched this on Christmas Day last year. It is the worst film ever made. But it's the worst film ever made. You'll have a blast. And Cultplex have been showing screenings of it with Greg every year for the past 5 years, I think. So if you get the chance to do it next year, if they ever do it, let me know and I'll drag my mate. I went by myself this time, but I actually met some friends there. One of which is going to be the next guest on this episode. Hopefully, I'll let her know actually after I've recorded this. But yeah, if you get the chance to watch The Room with some friends or see it in a cinema, you have to do it. You will not regret it. We have The Royal Tenenbaums, the first ever Criterion collection I ever got. Wes Anderson's. I've still only seen it the once, and I adored it. In fact, for a brief period, was in my Letterboxd top 4. That film, beautiful film. Next we have Rush, which I think people love this film. It's in the IMDb top 250, and probably the last good film that Ron Howard ever did. I think what stops it from being more famous is the fact that F1 isn't that popular in like the States and stuff. But yeah, it tells the real story of the rivalry between James Hunt, who's played by Chris Hemsworth, and Niki Lauda during the 1970-something story of the F1 season. But a brilliant, so underrated. What a really, really underrated film, in my opinion. We've got Saint Maud, directed by Rose Glass, who also did Love Lies Bleeding. This contains the most disturbing final few seconds of a film I've ever seen. It's a difficult watch. We have Saving Private Ryan on 4K, which I recently bought. Next up we have all the Saw films. Saw 1 to 7. You'll notice, well, how is that possible when it's just such a thin case? I think this is an American copy. I think Saws 1 and 2 are on one disc, 3, 4 and 5. And then 6, 7 are on the last disc. Terrible box art, by the way. But I got this for like super, super cheap. I think again because it's an American copy. But the actual Saw box set, the UK version, goes for a pretty penny. And then we have Saw X. having a bit of issue with the Saw films, aren't we? I think because this was such a huge hit, Saw 11 got announced to be released the following year, and there's been a lot of dispute over the rights, apparently. And I think time's running out with how old Tobin Bell is currently. So yeah, I'd love to see another Saw film. I don't have Spiral, why the fuck would I own that? What I do have is Scarface on 4K, and yes, I was one of those boys who had not one but two Scarface posters in his bedroom at one point. We've got the original Scary Movie, a film I'm super nostalgic for, and then watched the recently I actually watched all of these in the lead up to the new one, and they are rough, they are not good. 1 and 2 I'm nostalgic for, they're fun. 3 onwards, dog shit films. Next we have Schindler's List. My mum bought me this, and she said, I just feel like people of your generation haven't seen this film enough, which I don't think is true. It's one of the most famous films ever made. Yeah, but she bought that for me. Yeah, it's one of the greatest films ever made. Is it Spielberg's best? I think there's a genuine argument for. It's heavy. I don't think it's a film you need to watch more than once, which I'm sort of puzzled as to why I own it, but I think because my mum owned it, bought it for me, it has sort of sentimental value to it. What a weird two films to have together. It's The Scorpion King. It's dog shit, man. I rewatched it. Me and a friend of mine watched the Mummy films, and then we watched this. It's saved by a very charismatic performance by Dwayne Johnson in his first ever lead role as the Scorpion King. He saves this film, which sounds weird to say considering I've criticised him so much in the past, but yeah, it's fun. Like I spoke about League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, I just have a real soft spot for films from that time period. Then we have Scott Pilgrim versus the World. Then we have Scream 1 to 6, all individually. I need to get them in a box set, I think. Scream 1 and Scream 5 are on 4K, the rest are on Blu-ray. Scream 7 has just been released on Blu-ray very recently, but I guess I'm going to have to get it just for my OCD, so I have all of them. But I don't even want to talk about it, because I'll probably be talking about it in my worst of the year list. Next we have Searching, a really underrated thriller that is all set on a computer screen. Did actually get a sequel or a spiritual successor, which was called something else. I can't remember. Missing, I think it was called, which was okay, but that's much better. A very underrated film here, The Secret Life of Walter Mitty, directed by Ben Stiller. I was talking about that with my girlfriend recently, actually. Then we have Seven on 4K Steelbook. We have Seven Psychopaths, which is a film I do need to rewatch, because obviously Martin McDonagh has become this huge filmmaker, and I think people get really excited for his films now. Of course, directed In Bruges, which is one of my favourites. I think this was his second film after In Bruges, and of course gone on to direct Three Billboards and Banshees of Inisherin, and has got an upcoming film coming out this year, I think. I think this is probably his less seen film, but I mean, look at that cast. Colin Farrell, Sam Rockwell, Woody Harrelson, Christopher Walken. Yo! Very much need to rewatch it. Then we have probably one of the true great British films ever made, Sexy Beast. One of my favourite ever performances in that by Seben Kingsley. Then we have The Shallows, which is a really great B movie, shark movie about a girl who's stuck on a buoy being surrounded by a shark. Next up, we have the first 4K I ever got, and that is a beautiful steelbook, isn't it? It's The Shape of Water, Guillermo del Toro's The Shape of Water. Best Picture winner, by the way. And I even bought this without even having, because I bought it before PS5 came out, and I wasn't able to play 4Ks. Next, we have Shaun of the Dead. I think it's the best of the... It's certainly the one I've seen the most. In fact, when I think of the films that I've seen the most, Shaun of the Dead might be up there. And it's the one I have the most affinity for when it comes to the Cornetto trilogy, which is why I think I consider it my favourite, although I can see the argument why people would say Hot Fuzz is their favourite. But for me, Shaun of the Dead is the best. and we'll talk about the third one when we get to it, which I think I own. Yes, I do. Next up, we have The Shawshank Redemption on 4K. I think it's sort of become cool to hate on recently just because of how popular it is and the fact that it's been the IMDb top film for so long. But I won't have a bad word said about it. I think it's perfect. I'm sorry, don't at me, film bros. There's a reason why everyone loves it so much. It's because it's perfect. Next up, we have The Shining on 4K, recently rewatched as part of my Stanley Kubrick run through. We have Shoot 'Em Up, which, who makes this? What are the credits, man? Oh, I can't read that for the life of me. This is, if you remember me talking about Jason Statham's Crank, this is very much of the same vein. It's a silly B-movie with Clive Owen and Paul Giamatti as the villain, and it's just, I mean, I don't think there's been a more apt title for a film than Shoot 'Em Up. It's ridiculous. It's very much like Crank. It's probably the closest we'll ever get to like a GTA film, because it's just non-stop, high-octane, silly action for like 80 minutes. Next, we have two of the goats. We have Shrek and Shrek 2. I just hate the fact that it's like 3D Blu-ray, comes on 3 discs. These Blu-rays must have been released at the time when 3D was the thing. Of course, I actually saw Shrek in cinema fairly recently for its 25th anniversary, but come on, I think we all can agree that Shrek 2 is way better. I, again, rewatched them recently, but I didn't know how bad 3 and 4 were, especially the fourth one. Or was it the third one? I can't remember. It's just crazy to me that it's taken so long because, you know, Shrek it's still so popular through the memes and whatnot, and it's very good to see that it's finally making a comeback, but I'm shocked that it took so long. Like, when did Shrek 4 come out? Like 2011 or something? Like, why did it take so long for us to get Shrek again? Next up, we have Shutter Island. Oh, god damn, I love this film. Sideways, directed by Alexander Payne, who of course did The Holdovers. This stars Paul Giamatti again, alongside Thomas Hayden Church, Sandra Oh and Virginia Madsen. Great cast, and it's about Thomas Hayden Church is getting married, and Paul Giamatti takes him on a wine tasting tour the weekend before his wedding, and they get up to shenanigans. So funny. I think this Blu-ray is actually worth quite a bit as well, last time I checked. But it's so fucking good. And so is this, Sightseers, directed by Ben Wheatley, who again has just one of the most bizarre filmographies ever. So this is a sort of black comedy, very, very funny. But then he made like this really fucking dark, like folk horror film called Kill List. And then he made this like shitty ensemble cast film called Free Fire. And then he's made The Meg 2. And I think he was attached to make a Tomb Raider film, which later ended up getting cancelled, I think. But yeah, he's very, very big. Like, he's done these like really small independent folk horror films, and then he's done like a big shark film with Jason Statham. Next up, we have Silence of the Lambs on 4K. I watched this for the first time ever, can you believe it, during lockdown, and didn't like it. What fucking idiots what idiot says they don't like this? And then I watched it in cinema either last year or the year before. Perfect. However, it might be social suicide coming on such a platform. There's a lot of people who say this film is transphobic and stuff. For the time period, and like, again, because the villain of the film is obviously having some kind of gender identity crisis, and I think a lot of people in the trans community take offence to that. Grow up. I'm just going to say it, like, grow up. This is such a perfect film, and spoiler alert, yeah, trans people can be bad people as well. Like, just because the villain of the film, the serial killer, is a trans person, doesn't make it transphobic. I'm sorry. you can be trans and a bad person. You just can. The same way you can be a straight person and be a bad person. There are bad gay people. There are bad white people. There are bad black people. It fucking happens. And I just think if this was released now, could you imagine the fucking outcry that would cause now? Next we have Silent Hill. Again, a film which has a ridiculously low Rotten Tomatoes score and was panned by critics, but has been reanalyzed later down the line. It's very, very good. It's very good, and it's the best Silent Hill adaptation we've ever had. And it's very sad to see that the same director this year made a follow-up, and it is atrocious. Very expensive Blu-ray. You're looking at 30 plus quid for that, out of print. We've got Silver Linings Playbook, which is a film I need to rewatch because everyone I know who has watched this for the first time loves it, and of course got Jennifer Lawrence her Oscar. We've got Sin City and Sin City 2, which I think I've spoken about before, how it's like super underrated. We've got Sinners, one of the more newer films I own on 4K. We've got My Baby, The Goat, which not calling it a baby doesn't seem right, but Sinister. I'm not going to talk about it because I've spoken about it to death on here. We have Snatch. I love Snatch, and I love the film as well. I've been waiting for that. Again, we're going to talk about a director who has just gone off the rails, and I don't mean like mentally. But Guy Ritchie is known for these films. Do I have Lock, Stock? I don't think I do I? Oh dear. That's very surprising. I could have sworn I had Lock, Stock on Blu-ray. Of course, known for these quirky crime dramas. This is the apex of all of his films, in my opinion. And then he did Rock and Roller, which is like a super underrated film of his, which is of the same ilk as Snatch and Lock, Stock. Then had somewhat of a return to form with The Gentleman, but has made he's making a lot of like direct to streaming films recently. I think he's made like 5 or 6 films in the last 5 years. Like he's releasing a lot, and I think he's just become like a studio head. Like he's just one of those that, oh, we don't have anyone to make this, get Guy Ritchie. And it's a real shame because like when he makes stuff like this, no one does it better. But he did the Disney live action remake, and I just think he's just become one of those generic studio slop directors. He tried to make that weird film with Jason Statham in, which was just dumped on streaming. He's got a film out now. Right now, there is a film of his with fucking Henry Cavill in it that's gone direct to streaming, and I can't even remember what it's called. It's got Grey in the title, I know that. But once again, just proves that Henry Cavill is just a box office. He's not a box office draw, is he? But yeah, fascinating Guy Ritchie's filmography. Why do I own this? Snow White and the Huntsman. Why do I own that? We've got The Incredible Social Network, getting a sequel this year, by the way. I've still not seen the trailer, actually. We've got Soul by Pixar, probably their most underrated. I think Soul came and went and no one really talks about it. We have Spartacus on 4K. I watched this again, part of the Stanley Kubrick filmography. Probably the black sheep of his films because it's a huge studio production, and Kubrick wasn't really known for making films like that. So it does. I was really shocked to see that it was him who directed it. I only found out a couple of years that he directed it. This is a very long film, over 3 hours, and this is the extended version, which comes with an extra 12 minutes. Fantastic. It's so insane when you watch films from this time period, and especially films like this and Lawrence of Arabia and Cleopatra and the 12 Commandments and, or is it the 10 Commandments? I don't know, my Bible knowledge isn't what it used to be. But like how they made shit of this scale back then is mental. And I know they cost a lot of money, but I said in my review for this on Letterboxd, if you ever want to show someone how good 4Ks are, show them this. It's brilliant. It's a brilliant film. But yeah, long. Next we have the few Spider-Man box sets. So we've got the Tobey Maguire trilogy there on 4K and the Andrew Garfield films on 4K. They look very similar, those, don't they? I actually watched Spider-Man, the first Tobey Maguire film. I said that was the first film I watched in my new place, just because it means so much to me. Then we have Spider-Man No Way Home. New one's out in a couple of months. Well, next month, isn't it? Like 7 weeks away. Then we've got the Into the Spider-Verse and Across the Spider-Verse. I need to rewatch this because I didn't love it when it came out. Next up, we have Stand By Me, which gives me an existential crisis every time I watch it. And next we have the first ever Get Your Flicks Out film recommendation, the Stanford Prison Experiment. Very, very interesting film. I won't dwell on it too long because I go back and listen to episode 1 of Get Your Flicks Out because I speak about it there, but so interesting. Next we have this Stanley Kubrick collection, which contains Lolita, 2001: Space Odyssey. I couldn't read it. Clockwork Orange, Barry Lyndon, The Shining, Full Metal Jacket, and Eyes Wide Shut, which I saw for the first time literally a couple of weeks ago. What a fascinating film that is. Like, I could see why people would hate that film, but it's just Tom Cruise going on a walk for 2.5 hours. Yeah. I might do a Stanley Kubrick ranked one day, which is why I don't want to dwell on it too long. We've got Stardust. Nice film. Nice film. We've got Starship Troopers, which I watched. This slaps. It fucking slaps, by the way. Starship Troopers. And it's like a huge metaphor for fascism as well, which I always find like super interesting. We've got the Star Wars films on Blu-ray, just the first 6, the only Star Wars films that matter. I would love to upgrade them to 4K, but it's still absurdly expensive. It's like 200 quid. We've got Rogue One. We've got Strange Darling, recent film recommendation from myself. We've got the 2024 Get Your Flicks Out Best Film, The Substance. We've got Suicide Squad, the James Gunn one, not the terrible 2016 one. Although I've got a sort of urge to rewatch that as of late. I don't know why. I sort of want to give it a second chance. We've got the Superman 5-film collection, which is of course the first 4 Christopher Reeve Superman films, and Superman Returns. Watched these a couple of years ago. So good. Those first 2 Christopher Reeve ones especially. 3 and 4. I know, like, people often say Superman 4 is one of the worst films ever. I actually think 3 is worse, because Superman's barely in it, and they replace him with Richard Pryor. Very bizarre. And then Superman Returns feels like just one of the biggest missed opportunities in cinema history, because instead of rebooting it, it's a sequel to the Christopher Reeve films, and the only reason Brandon Routh was cast is because he looked like Christopher Reeve at the time. Very strange. Then we have probably one of the most, like, I don't want to say unknown, because I know a lot of people know this film, but one of the most sort of lesser spoken about Disney animated films, The Sword of the Stone. Then we have, but what I do have is a particular set of skills. That's my Liam Neeson impression, because it's taken. I don't know if many people know this, but this was originally supposed to be direct-to-video, but it tested that well, and then, of course, completely... like, that's when Liam Neeson became badass action star, and he's never really gone back to being a good actor again, has he? We've got Talk to Me. We've got Tangled. We love Tangled. We've got Taxi Driver, which is celebrating its 50th anniversary this year, and I shall get in cinema soon, which I'll be all over. We've got Team America World Police. I was going to tell a story about this with an upcoming guest, I think, but I can't remember if he was there or not, so I'll just tell it now. So I'm not all that familiar with South Park, like, because it was never shown on like regular terrestrial TV when I was younger, and it still isn't. It's on Comedy Central, I think. So I wasn't aware of how sort of like crude South Park was, and I remember seeing the trailer for this, and because I was such a fan of Thunderbirds and Captain Scarlet as a kid, I was like, oh, there's this comedy film with marionette puppets in it. I want to watch it. But then I saw it was 15, and I was like, oh, that's weird. So I got my mum and dad, it might have been my dad actually, who got me a pirated version of this. And I had a sleepover at mine for my birthday one year. And I might have had Spider-Man 2 as well, because they're both from the same year. So I think I got this and Spider-Man 2 on pirate copy for my birthday or something. And I watched it as a sleepover. And I remember watching this for the first time. And the first time a character says fuck in it, I was like, and just had the fucking time of my life. It's so funny. I can see why we've not had a Team America sequel. I don't think they dare touch it, and they didn't make a sequel even back then in 2004. So it's no contains strong language, violence, and sex, all involving puppets. Could you imagine if they made that today? Jesus Christ! Yeah, I love it. I'm not ashamed to say it. We've got. I think I might have had this in my honourable mentions one year, but Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Mutant Mayhem, brilliant, super overlooked, came and went, no one talks about it, it's fucking sick. Speaking of sick, we have Terrifier 1 and 2. We'll talk about those another time. Then we have two of my favourite ever films. We've got Terminator on 4K Steelbook, on a beautiful Steelbook, by the way. Look at that. Look at that. Oh my God. That was a 40th anniversary Steelbook. And then, of course, Terminator 2, also on 4K Steelbook. Apparently, the 4K transfer of this is atrocious. I've even seen people say it's the worst 4K transfer of all time. I can't watch Terminator 1 without watching Terminator 2 immediately afterwards. It's the greatest ever double bill you'll ever do. Terminator 2 is one of my favourite films ever made. This does come on 3 discs. It does contain the Blu-ray as well, and the Blu-ray does have the excellent extended version, which I never knew existed until lockdown, and I watched them, and I was like, wait a minute, I don't remember a dream sequence with Kyle Reese and the bit where they take the chip out his head and stuff like that. Yeah, I couldn't speak highly of them enough. We've got the original Texas Chainsaw on 4K. Annoyingly, I don't have Texas Chainsaw 2 on 4K, which I do need to get. I might get it soon, actually. Or Texas Chainsaw 3, which is shit, but I kind of love it. Kind of like the 4th film, which I do have. So I've got 1 and I've got 4, which stars Renee Zellweger and Matthew McConaughey giving a super unhinged performance. What's so weird about these films, right, is that you have the first film, which is this really nasty, grounded, horrible, contained, like, thriller. I wouldn't consider it a slasher film, to be honest. And then they just get so crazy, especially the second one. And then this one is nuts with McConaughey in it. And it's revealed that there's like a secret organisation running everything. It's terrible, but it sort of has a weird charm to it. And then we actually have the 2003 remake, which was produced by Michael Bay and starring Jessica Biel and R. Lee Ermey in this, who you probably is most known for the drill sergeant in Full Metal Jacket and the army men in Toy Story, is so chilling in this as like the sheriff, the corrupt sheriff. Probably one of the few great horror remakes. We have There Will Be Blood, one of the greatest films ever by Paul Thomas Anderson. Then we have Michael Mann's Thief, which I have never seen but was inspired to buy due to, I saw a video of Ryan Coogler, director of Sinners and Black Panther, in the Criterion Closet. He picked this out and he was really like nerding out over it, and it's made me want to get it. But the reason I've not watched it yet is that I plan on doing a Michael Mann run through of his filmography. I'm very excited because he directed Heat and Collateral, which are two of my favourite ever films, so why haven't I seen anything else he's done? Next we have one of the greatest horrors ever made, The Thing. Why is this box art so shit? Like, The Thing, I was hoping it had a reversible cover. The Thing has one of the most iconic film posters of all time, but look how shit that box art is. What are you doing, son? I might rewatch that soon, although I did see it in cinema at Halloween last year, but that's the 4K. And I might even watch the... People think it's a remake. It's not. It's actually a prequel, the one from 2013 with Mary Elizabeth Winstead. We've got This Is the End. We've got This Is England. We have one of the most disturbing films ever made, Threads. This is quite an expensive Blu-ray that I bought fairly recently. It comes in 2 discs, a widescreen edition. If you don't know what this is, this was a made-for-TV film for the BBC in the early 80s. I think, what year is it? I want to say 83. I don't remember it being so... Surely it's not 285 minutes. Was it a series? And maybe it was a series and there's no way it's unless that's just both versions. The remastered version, widescreen edition. Unless that's like, there's no way it's that long. First broadcast on 23rd of September 1984 on BBC Two at 9:30 p.m. It's literally... So what this is a very, very real and disturbing look at what if nuclear war happened, but instead of it being in LA or New York, if it was in Sheffield. And it's so upsetting and real because of just how none of them were like real actors. And I always feel that's just such a... Every time you see that in a film, it adds a sense of realism to it, and especially when it's set in the UK and they're all talking in Yorkshire accents and you see the horrible aftermath of nuclear war. It's heavy, but it's very, very good. We've got 3 billboards. We have Titanic on 4K. Only watched this for the first time in full from start to finish back in like 2022 or 2023. I'd, of course, like had seen bits of it. Who hasn't? But it's my first time seeing it from start to finish. Turns 30 next year, so I would imagine it's going to get a re-release in cinema. And I think for many, many years it was very cool to hate because it's like, oh, it's for girls. But then you watch it and it's made by James Cameron, who's just a master, and then you're like, it's fucking brilliant. I won't have a bad thing said about it. We have Tokyo Godfathers, which again is directed by Satoshi Kon, who made Perfect Blue. I was going to watch this, a friend of mine was going to come round and we were going to watch this together a few weeks ago, but something came up and he was unable to do it. But this was a $5 brand new at HMV because they were doing some like deal on anime stuff. We've got the 3-star Tomb Raider film from 2017 or 2018, whenever it's from. We're getting a Tomb Raider. Is it a film or is it a series with Sophie Turner? I'm not too sure. We've got Total Recall on 4K. Probably it's the best Arnold Schwarzenegger film that doesn't have Terminator or Predator in the title. It's so much fun, and the violence in this film, it's got some of the most creative violence ever. Then we have the criminally underrated The Town, directed by Ben Affleck. There's so many of these I need to rewatch. Right, I want to talk about these for a moment. The Toy Story trilogy. These films are obviously very popular with people of my generation. But for some reason, I think I was maybe a bit too young. I mean, I was 2 when the original Toy Story came out. Toy Story 2, however, is one of my earliest ever film cinema memories. I remember my mum complaining about how long the trailers were because it was like half an hour. And I watched this a lot, and I've rewatched all of these in the lead up to Toy Story 5. Which came out recently, which I have also recently watched. I think this genuinely could be the greatest trilogy ever. I think it's between this, Indiana Jones, and Lord of the Rings. Like, I don't know what it is, but the older I've gotten, I'm finding myself crying at films a lot more. There's a film that came out this year, which I'll probably talk about in my Best of the Year episode, but I watched Toy Story 3 last week, and I was inconsolable, and I'm not ashamed to say it. It is, when they were in the incinerator, and they just hold each other, I'm literally choking up just talking about it, and they accept death in a fucking kids film. And it's so beautiful. The ending is so beautiful, but it made money. And when you make money and you're owned by Disney, you're going to get a sequel. No matter how perfectly you wrap it up, you're getting a fucking sequel, cunt. And listen, Toy Story 4 isn't bad. Having rewatched, like, there's a little bit of stank attached to it because of how it feels like it exists for the sole purpose of being a cash grab, and they could have made it a soulless cash grab. It isn't. I think it's a little bit better than you remember Toy Story 4, but you could even argue that Toy Story 4 has the perfect ending, and then they make a fucking another one, because that made $1 billion, and I've just seen that Toy Story 5, I read an article this morning, that Toy Story 5 has had the biggest opening in franchise history, so don't be shocked if we get Toy Story 6 later down the line. But you can just watch these three and pretend that the others don't exist. That's what I do. Even though Toy Story 4 is good, like I gave it 4 stars, these are just perfect. Each one is better than the last. I think I might prefer 2 to 3 because I'm just a little bit more familiar with it. If you ignore the really dodgy bit at the end where Stinky Pete is with the Barbie dolls and he's like, do you want a part in Toy Story 3? And he's obviously an homage to Harvey Weinstein. Ignore that. That's in a kid's film. How crazy is that? But yeah, perfect films, especially 3. That might be the most I've cried at a film. And even if I was an actor and I needed to cry on cue, I would think of Toy Story 3, and I think it would do me in. But yeah, beautiful film, Toy Story 3. Next up we have, I'll get emotional. Training Day. Trainspotting. Train to Busan, which is a really underseen Korean zombie film. Got 44 minutes of memory left. Got True Romance on 4K. We've got The Truman Show, which, if there is ever a film ahead of its time, it's that one. We've got M. Night Shyamalan's Unbreakable. I think I prefer this to The Sixth Sense, but the ending's so shit. It ends on a freeze frame. I hate it when films... I saw something else recently. It's something you saw a lot in 80s films, especially coming-of-age 80s films, where it would end on a freeze frame and it would tell you what happened to each character, but they're fictional characters. And I think it works when it's a biopic and it's real life and it tells you what happened to these people. When it's fiction and you do it, I find it weird because this ends... you have the huge reveal that Samuel L. Jackson was behind all the tragedies in his life, and then it just freeze frames and it says, oh, and then he got put in an insane asylum. And then we, of course, got Split, which is a sequel to this. And then, of course, we got Glass, which is one of the worst films I've ever seen, because M. Night Shyamalan can't write dialogue. We have The Usual Suspects. We have a motorbike driving past. We've got V for Vendetta. We've got Van Helsing. Again, I've already alluded to it already. I just love this time period of films. Early 2000s, silly blockbusters. We don't get them anymore. And had a really great video game tie-in as well. It was like a Devil May Cry rip-off. It was brilliant. We have The Velocipasta. Chloe, I know you're watching it and I know you're listening. We're fucking getting this scene. You've made me watch Dirty Dancing and The Parent Trap and Mean Girls. It's my turn. And we're watching The Velocipasta. This is a really dumb, self-aware, made for 20 quid film about a priest that turns into a dinosaur. And it's fucking stupid and it's an hour long. But it's actually gotten a sequel. I've seen the trailer for the sequel. I'm not too sure when it's getting released though. Next up we have Park Chan-wook's Vengeance trilogy. So Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance, Old Boy, and Lady Vengeance. I think I spoke about this recently. Worst part, John Wilkes Oscar. He's the greatest. He's one of the. I think he's going to go down as one of the greatest filmmakers to never win an Oscar, and I think that's just due to the lack of English language speaking films he's not done. We've got Wall-E. We've got the very stupid but also charming Wanted. We've got War of the Worlds, Steven Spielberg's War of the Worlds with Tom Cruise. The opening 40 minutes of this is I think, some of Spielberg's best work. Like, the invasion sequences in this are incredible, and it sort of gets worse as the film goes on, but I would consider this Spielberg's last, like, blockbuster, like, the last Spielberg film that really felt like it was in the zeitgeist. Maybe Ready Player One, but I haven't seen Ready Player One. But of course, his new film that came out recently, which I didn't like at all. But this feels like, for me, this is where, I don't want to say peaked, because he obviously has better films than this, but in terms of cultural relevance, it's where he peaked, I think. Next up, we have Warrior. Another film which has an incredibly emotional ending. I was put off it for years because it's like, I don't know, it just felt like really cliche of like two brothers who have to face each other in an MMA tournament. I was like, that sounds lame, but it's actually really fucking good. We have Watchmen, the extended version. I often considered this one of my favourite ever films. In fact, when I used to work at Odeon, there was you had to have your favourite film on your name badge, and I went through like 10 different name badges, and one of them was Watchmen, and I often considered it my favourite. And then I watched it in cinema about 2 years ago. It looks great, and it's written by David Hayter, which I think people... David Hayter is the voice of Solid Snake, but also does a lot of screenwriting, and he wrote the original X-Men film, he wrote this, and he also wrote The Scorpion King as well. He's a dream podcast guest, by the way, David Hayter, and I think he could be, if I got a big enough platform, I think he could be quite attainable as well. But the dialogue in this is, the performances are a bit ropey, and the dialogue is a bit ropey. But fair play to Zack Snyder. You know, this was often cited as being unfilmable, and it still looks very good. And I've still yet to see the ultimate cut. So one day, if I can see past the awful dialogue, we'll get through it. Right, last few now. We have The Warriors. We have We Need to Talk About Kevin. It's a challenging watch, but it's very good. Ezra Miller. Oh, you silly sausage. Next up, I'm thinking of doing an episode of top 10 underrated films, but I want to sort of focus on one genre. I want to focus on multiple genres, and this was going to be my answer for rom-com, and that is What If from 2013 or 2014. I don't know if people know it or not. Stars Daniel Radcliffe, Zoe Kazan, Mackenzie Davis, and Adam Driver. Just before he, I think when this came out, it was announced that he was Kylo Ren. But very, very charming and very, very funny and very, very underrated rom-com. I think it had a different title in different territories called The F Word, but then was titled What If. I think it had its title changed at the last minute. The F obviously standing for Friends, you dirty-minded bastard. It's a bit cliche in the sense that it's two best friends who think maybe we should, but very, very good. It's very, very good. Needs more eyes on it. Next up, we have one of the goats, Whiplash. Next up, we have one of the goats in The Wicker Man. No one ever told me when I watched it, this is a musical, and I will not be told otherwise. It is a musical. The Wicker Man's a musical. Who knew? We have another musical in Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. I really want to. I've got this on 4K recently. I can't wait to watch it. The Wizard of Oz on 4K. God, last few now, getting emotional. Next up we have Wolf Creek, really great, super disturbing Australian horror film, which does have a couple of sequels which I've never seen. It at least has one. It at least has one sequel. Next up we have The World's End, which is of course the final one in the Cornetto trilogy. I like it more and more every time I watch it. The first time I watched it, I was like, ugh. But every time I've rewatched it since, I've seen it probably 3 or 4 times now, and I love it more and more with each watch. And I think I might watch those films again soon. And I relate a lot to the Simon Pegg character in this, with the sort of fear of getting older and wanting to go back to those summer nights with your childhood friends and stuff like that. I relate a lot to that, but I don't want to get too deep into it. Next up we have X, the first of the X trilogy, of course, followed by Pearl and Maxine. Then we have the X-Men films. I think this goes up to it's X-Men to Days of Future Past. Me and Chloe watched these. Well, we started watching them, but we seem to have forgotten about them, haven't we? So we need to pick. We got up to First Class, I think. So there's a few more to watch. Having a blast with them. I think they've aged really, really well, actually. Especially X-Men 2. X-Men 2 slaps. Then we have David Fincher's Zodiac. Then we have Zombieland, which was... This reminds me of college a lot. I remember we did an assignment on it for some reason when it came out. That and Jennifer's Body. 2009, aren't they? Lots and lots of fun, Zombieland. The sequel... shite. And then last but certainly not least, Zootropolis, or Zootopia as it's known elsewhere. Need to get the sequel. Anything to get more of this sexy bitch. And there we go. That's it, I think. Of course, I'll never stop buying these. I've calmed down a little bit, you know, ever since I've got my own place. I sort of need to get my priorities in check and sort of maybe chill out. Of course, I still buy the occasional one, but going through these has made me realise just how much I need to rewatch some of them. And like I said, some of them I've never seen. If you want to look at these, my Letterboxd profile at James_Eddie93, there's a list pinned to my profile which covers my entire physical media collection. On there, I think I've seen 92% of the 600 plus that I own. So, and just going through this has been really, really fun, and it's made me realise that, again, there's so many I still need to see and still need to rewatch. So, again, I know I said it last time, but just thank you to everybody who stuck by me these last 5 years. Film means so much to me. Nobody goes to the cinema more than me, and I mean that. I don't think there's a single person on the planet, maybe with the exception of film critics whose job it is to watch films. I don't think there's anybody who watches more films than me. I'm so passionate about films. I want to keep this podcast going. The goal is I need to build a platform, man. I know I keep saying it, and one day, maybe if I become a millionaire and I can put money into it. My goal is in the next 5 years, maybe. I know that seems absurd to say, but to get a guest with some sort of platform would be great. But yeah, I've really enjoyed this. We're going to keep up with releasing 1 episode a month. I know I said that was my goal for this year. I'm hoping to even continue it into next year as well. Next episode, we should be back to having guests on instead of just being stuck with my voice for so long. So thank you for, I mean, these 2 episodes combined are probably going to be 3 hours, I would imagine, certainly 2.5. And yeah, thank you once again. I know I keep saying it, but yeah, thank you for 5 years. Here's to 5 more. Thank you to my regular listeners, Zoe, Chloe, Johnny, Joe, I think Andy from my band as well. Band Andy listens to them as well. They've been with me since day one. It really means a lot, especially considering, you know, I do this for fun. It genuinely does mean a lot that you all listen to me. So thanks again. I promise that's the last time I'll say thank you, apart from then. And I will see you on the next episode of Get Your Flicks Out.